Adam, it's good to see you. It's been way too long.
Probably years. In person, anyways.
Pull that mic a little closer, will you?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah. It's much better.
Hold me closer, tiny dancer.
Elton John. It's classic. Or Tim McGraw. Didn't Tim McGraw do that?
He did.
Yeah.
That's kind of my go-to. If I was going to listen to Tiny Dancer, it'd be the Tim McGraw. That was back when he was rustic. Before he jumped east of 47.
Yeah, he's got some good covers. Tim McGraw does.
Oh, yeah.
He also did...
I thought you were saying Elton John. I'm like...
No. He also did didn't he do Tell You Ride?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cover, too, and I thought he did a good job on that. Mm-hmm. I was going to tell you, too, some of the stuff that you post on Facebook with your kids is hilarious. There is one, I can't remember exactly how it was, but you got a picture. You're either in a skid steer or an excavator or something, and your son pulls up on a little battery-operated gator.
Yeah.
And
when the superintendent shows up after 10 hours and you know he's going to ask you to work late and there's cold beer in the cooler, you says some bullshit
something like that. Yeah, $1 beer night or something.
Yeah, that's what it was.
God.
Yep.
I laughed so hard.
Because it was I think it was, I don't remember if it was my oldest or my youngest was on my lap. And we were working, and it was afternoon. You know, like when you're working outside and it's hot and it's dry, and you're like, man, I could just taste that, you know, like. And then he pulls up, and I knew he was going to ask me something. Like, I've been here before. Like, I've had this. Like, what is this? I'm running equipment, and there's a guy about to tell. I know.
And it's the end of the day.
I know Lumberg's going to ask me to stay late.
Office Space was a classic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I seen that. That's a post that sticks in my head, and man, I laughed way too hard.
I always tell people I'm going to start sending the pictures and the posts of when it's like 9:30 and they won't go to bed, and they're screaming that they want a candy bar, and you're like, oh my god! Everybody's like, your kids are so cute. They are.
They're adorable until they're gremlins.
I just don't want to paint a false image for you.
Yeah, some of them, that's the one that stuck in my head the most, but you've got a bunch of them out there that cracked me up a lot when you involve them in there. But so, man, thanks for coming out and hanging out and doing this. This is fun for me.
I'm a first timer, long time listener, first time caller.
Hey, that's fine. We'll take damn near anybody, you know.
Obviously, I'm here. I'm sharing the stage with Chad Farner, so I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, I mean, he kept that bar pretty high. That's all I'm saying.
He knows a lot about bars.
I think that's where I met Chad, was in a bar. Mm-hmm. One of them down in Marengo.
That's about all we have, bars and churches.
Oh, Harbor's the same way. Fast food.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got all that too.
We got a Taco Bell now too, so watch out.
You do have a Taco Bell. You do have Joe's Place though down there.
Yeah. That's like I miss the old Joe's Place.
It's a little expensive, but damn, food's still good.
I miss the old one where it was like, you could still smoke inside. Like, it was just like, nothing quite like that secondhand smoke in this hot Chicago dog special.
Their fries are amazing. Mm-hmm. They are.
It's a whole potato. You know, they're like 9 inches long.
I'll take your word on that.
Yeah. I'll leave that one alone. This is public.
I don't give a shit. Say whatever the hell you want. The worst I'll do is edit it out later. Oh. So, or not. When in Rome. I don't like to edit out a lot of things. You know, if we have a conversation and some things are said that I think that, you know, I can get canceled for, that's still maybe. A lot of times I don't edit stuff out. Yeah. I just let her fly.
I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations is up on most of my wrongdoings because I've been, you know. I'm kidding. I'm not cool enough to break the law.
I don't really care.
I did 60 and a 55 on the way here, so I'm feeling pretty rowdy.
Look at you go.
Yeah.
I never speed.
Yeah.
Never. I don't know why. I mean, if I speed, it's 3 miles an hour over the speed limit. You know, it's 58 to 55.
I've got all those years of driving to and from work on the tollway, and it's like, you know, the speed limit's 70, and if you drive 70, you get run over. So then, you know,
yep,
it's hard to turn that off.
What, you were taking the tollway into Chicago?
Well, the suburbs. So I worked for a sewer and water company for 12 years, and then you know, all of our work was east of 47 to go back on our pre-microphone conversation. I mean, mostly like Lake County, Cook County. A little bit of like the close work would have been like Elgin, that kind of stuff. So
what did I mean? You said sewer and water, so elaborate on that.
So I mean, basically, water and sewer pipes underground was was what we did. I mean, new installation of water mains, water services. We didn't do a lot of sanitary sewer work, which is the poop pipes.
Yeah.
We did some, point repairs and stuff. We did a lot of stormwater work. So primarily what that would be, like RCP is what it's called, reinforced concrete pipe. So like the stuff you see on the trucks from Welch Brothers.
Yep. The big pipes that are just full of concrete or that are concreted all the way around.
And box culverts, the square ones.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. So we did a lot of like
So you were the man on the ground installing all that stuff.
So, well, I was a union laborer, but for the most part, almost the whole time I was there, I was like our equipment manager. So, we weren't a huge company, so it's not like you had like a box that you were paying it into, but like that was like my thing. And then, when people were sick or on vacation, run equipment, or, you'd like fill in when one of the foremen was on vacation or that kind of stuff. Just kind of a little bit of everything. I really liked it because I've got ADD and a couple other 3-letter acronyms. So, for me to stay in one spot for very long.
Well, that's probably nice for you because you were always jumping around doing something different all the time.
Well, it was. I mean, I hauled equipment. My boss was one of the owners of the company, and he was like, his title would have been like the superintendent. So like him and I were kind of hand in hand, setting up jobs, clearing out jobs. As time went on, I got more responsibilities of things and, like managing the fleet, what equipment we're going to buy, what equipment we need to trade off, trench boxes is a big thing.
What's a trench box?
So if you're doing,
you're talking to a guy that doesn't know jack shit about that stuff.
That's okay. Ask my wife. I tell long, boring stories. So trench boxes would be there. So if you're doing like a linear trench, like say you're putting in a 10-foot deep concrete storm sewer, right?
Okay.
So storm sewer takes all the water from the grates that you see on the curb line. It goes and it runs down to like one main central trunk line down, usually like the center or the side of the street. So if you're 10 foot deep, this stuff's, and I'll try and not go into that, but like OSHA regulates after certain depth, you have to have shoring in place or you have to dig it at a certain slope so that it doesn't cave in on the guys that are down there working.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, and especially when you're in a city running down the street, you don't want to dig out any more dirt than you have to when you only have so much space anyways.
Right.
Like if you,
it's tight in there.
Yeah, like if you're doing tile in a farm field or something, I mean, most of those guys do with a tile plow or something anyways, but you can throw the dirt to the sides and don't worry about that. So the trench boxes are like the steel. The smaller ones are made out of aluminum, but they don't last very long because aluminum's it's light and strong, but it's not as strong as steel. So when you're beating on them to get them down and stuff, so that holds the bank back. So you dig your trench and then you either slide the box forward or you kind of halfway dig the trench. You slide it forward if the ground's bad coming in on you, and then you dig out the bottom, and then you make your last cut to get yourself to grade. The bottom man is the guy who'll be down in there, and we have a laser that's basically just like a straight beam that you program to have grade into it. So, you'll be like 0.25%.
Yeah. So if you wanted a slight grade to flow one direction, because you can put that laser down and go, nope, we got to go a little more yet.
Yeah. So what you'll do is you'll set the laser up in the last manhole you set, and you level it and align it and all this other stuff, and then you put in your pitch or your percentage. The bigger the pipe, the less pitch it's going to have.
Really? Well, I guess that makes sense because you've got more volume.
You've got more volume, and what they do in a lot of these cities is they'll oversize the pipe for what it needs to be so that it has more volume for storage. So if you get a big rain event, it doesn't overload wherever it's going. The lake, smart. The river, the whatever. It'll add capacity to it, and then that low pitch goes alongside with that because you don't want it rushing out. You want it to drain eventually, but you don't want it to.
You don't want it to overflow rivers and creeks and all
overwhelm your outfall. So, anyways, you put your trench box in there. See, just winding through the road here. So you put you got your trench box in there, and you make your cut, and then you'll get the guy will have basically just a wooden stick with 2 lines on it. One will be the cut for.
The grade
for your cut, and then you'll have a top of stone grade. Top of stone will be the same as the bottom of your pipe grade. You'll dig that out, and then the backhoe guy will spin around, grab some stone out of the stone miser box, which is like a big metal box that you put wash stone in, so you're not digging it off the ground, and then he carries that with him. You'll put, and it's all spec'd on the plan, but say they want, 4 inches of wash stone. Then you'll put your wash stone down, he'll check it with his thing, knock it around, and then you put your pipe in. You'll check on the top of them that they're on grade or whatever you want to do. There's also a little target that goes inside of the pipe.
Okay.
And then it's just like a piece of plexiglass with a target on it. And then, so you'll set that in there. Your pipe laser will shoot through that glass, and you'll see it looks like a cigarette glowing in the dark. Like if
gotcha.
Or maybe
I'm picking up what you're
maybe like
down.
a backwoods cigar, a little bit bigger than that, and then you'll see it. So what you'll do is you'll want to leave your stone a little bit high sometimes, and then backhoe guy will be on top, and then he'll just push down on it till it's on grade, and then just kind of wiggle it down.
How do they connect those big concrete pieces together? Do they, or do they just set them?
No, so it's not like you're thinking of like old school line lay tile where they just butt up to each other. So it depends. Like if it's
because a lot of clay tile, like in these farm fields, are that way. They just literally lay them next to each other all the way down the grade of the field.
That's that way because it wants to draw the water. These you want to keep it in. So if you're doing RCP and it's just regular bell and spigot pipe, they have a rubber gasket that goes on the spigot.
Okay.
And it kind of looks like a glorified rubber band. There's more to it than that, but that's kind of like what we call them, So you put that on, and then that's what'll help them seal them.
And then you put the next concrete pipe right next to that.
They're bell and spigot, so there's like a male and a female end.
Yep.
So then that'll go that way. If you were doing PVC pipe, those come from the factory with a spigot like stuck into the bell.
Okay.
So those are already ready, and then you'll make sure you grease them up, and then you stick them together. And then if you're doing like ductile pipe, it's kind of the same concept as the PVC. But instead of it being shipped with the gaskets come separate, and then you got to put those in. You got to clean it all out and get those in because, and all of that stuff gets tested in a different way. Like storm sewer is probably the most lax depending on the governmental body you're putting it in for and what it's being used for. But then like sanitary sewer, they'll usually pressure test at like maybe 10 PSI, plug the ends up and make sure it's not leaking. A water main test, every village has a different thing, but they'll maybe want to put it at 150 psi and let it sit for 4 hours
and see if it drops psi pressure. See if it drops pressure or whatnot.
To do it the right way, I can't remember how it goes now, but there's like a makeup allowance. Like you're allowed to leak X amount, and then you'll either convert the psi into gallons, or you'll do the, I think it's like 3% of the total volume. So if you've got 12-inch pipe and it's 1,000-foot run, you do the schematics and the pies and the R's and the squares, and
we can lose X amount.
Yeah, and then you'll know, and
we're good.
The easiest way to do that is when you test, you usually just dump water into like a big barrel, and then you suck it out of there with this. It's like a Honda engine, kind of like a miniature trash pump,
like a pump. Yeah,
it's a hydrostatic test pump, and it's actually the same type of pump. I think they also use it like for sprayers.
Yep,
because it'll do high pressure and like low volume. So that I think it's that same pump that would maybe be used on like a golf course sprayer. But then it does this because it'll do the pressure. So then you figure out like how many gallons it needs to be. You fill it up, and then you got, if it's 5 gallons, you got a 5-gallon bucket, and you hope it runs over until you dump the thing in. Otherwise, and you'll know usually right off the bat if you've got a leak somewhere, because you'll watch that pressure gauge
just start falling.
Yeah. Well, it always does that at first, and everybody always poops their pants because they're like, oh no, we got a leak, but you got
all the gaskets that got to get completely.
Air will leak past the gasket, but water won't. So you got to think you install this pipe and it's all full of air. You fill it, but you won't fill it full. It won't fill full. It's going to get trapped in spots, and especially if you've got like, a grade that kind of goes up and down, and you get a bubble. You fill it from one side, and then you flush, where you basically just open up all the hydrants and everything, and you just give her hell. Give it as much as you can. I mean, really.
Yeah, you want to get that air bubble out of there.
And like there's no like set standard for like, if it's 1,000 feet long and it's X amount, we need to flush for 3 minutes per gallon. Like,
yeah, no.
Like you just like, and then everybody's like, we should flush it really good. And then you're like, all right, well, we want to get the test going so that we can get this, because you gotta, you pressure test the water main, you pass that test, and then they chlorinate it to make sure there's no bacteria in there, because before you can hook it up to the main and all the people's houses, you got to pass that. And so you got to stage all this stuff to keep the guys working, because if you're waiting on a test and you don't have another job to go to, then everybody's got to sit home, and luckily,
nobody wants to do that.
We had a really good planning sequence of where that, I don't know if that ever happened. But or you'd break up the job into you do pressure test and chlorinate one block at a time, so that way you've always got something to fall back on. So if you've got a problem with utility conflict where you're installing the main line, you can fall back and do services. Or
and that makes perfect sense, because if all of a sudden you're 4 blocks ahead and then you do this pressure test and something happens, you go, oh no, where's it at in this 4 blocks? It could be the last one we did. It could be the first one that we did that we have a problem.
There's usually valves at every intersection.
Oh, well, that's good then.
So
you can start shutting valves off and be like, okay, we found our problem.
And you can isolate, which block it's on and that kind of stuff. But, then you also have, I've been in construction my whole life, so it's setup time. When I load the dishwasher at home, I'm thinking about setup time. What's the best way to do this? We get all the forks in this corner, because that way when we're done, we're going to grab those sons of bitches and throw them all in the drawer.
Why? You're 100% right on that.
But that's the same thing. By that standpoint, it would make most sense to put in, 5,000 feet of water main, pressure test, and chlorinate, because it usually costs the same to chlorinate a block as it does the whole job, because the guy does... He's got a minimum, and then he's got whatever, and usually the minimum covers up to 3,000 feet. So, you're kind of underbidding or overbidding, whatever, not being the most efficient with that. But then you've got a place to go, and then
and if everything turns out fine on that block, you're already working on the next block then at that point.
Well, and that's the thing. And then if you've got one guy who can fall back. Instead of having a 3-man crew, you run a 2-man crew for a day or two, and then he does the pressure test, because you got to pump it up and let it sit, and you want to test it in-house before you call the village out, because they're going to get pissed if you're failing. If you test it too early, it's not going to pass.
Right. You got to let everything settle too. You got to let it settle into each other. Let the dirt get it completely settled all the way around. Let those gaskets that you were talking about, I'm sure, let those find their sweet spots.
The biggest thing is to just get the air out of it, because air will make it test bad. Air will leak out of the line, but water won't leak past a valve or that kind of thing. So, but yeah, and then you do that, and then you got your tap machine out and drill holes in the pipe, and you put your corpse in and run the copper, and everybody gets new water service. And
congratulations, you got new water, new fresh water.
Yep, and then you pave over it, and nobody ever knows you were there,
which is pretty cool.
It's kind of the point.
It's just cool on how all of that actually works. You would have think 100 years ago, they never would have thought about this stuff.
They did, though. We dug up a water main in the city of Evanston that was installed by their records in 1901.
Really?
Yeah. And we did a job down in Elmhurst where we were putting in one of those deep storm sewers, and we dug out wooden water main. So it's water main pipe that's made out of wood. And I mean, that's going back way back in the day.
Yeah, I'm surprised that was still holding up.
Well, it wasn't in use. I mean, so it was abandoned, but it was still there. We had it, and we took some pieces of it back to the shop, and the guys were all scrounging it and because they're sewer guys, So, that's their life.
They're what the hell is this? How does this work?
Farmers, oh, look at that 40/20, or
oh yeah,
that's a council. That's a
side council.
That's a side council nail front with a power shift. They've only made 37 of those.
Back in 1971, question, no.
Yeah, it was 73 and a half actually.
See,
they were just running up old inventory. I made that up. We had all these narrow fronts and side councils left, and
we gotta figure it all out. Yeah. They're a popular tractor.
40 wasn't coming out until next year. I was clean out the broom closet, throw some.
You gotta wonder sometimes on if these companies actually do that. Oh man, we got X amount of inventory left on these specific things, and we can make that work. Here's the new design.
It's Burger night didn't go so well on Wednesday's special, so Friday's special is meatloaf.
Exactly.
What are we gonna do with all this ground beef?
Or shrimp stew on a Thursday, and Friday they're having shrimp, or vice versa. Shrimp special for Thursday night, and Friday morning we're having shrimp stew for the special. I don't blame them. You gotta work with what you got. What kind of equipment do you guys have then?
We had a mixed batch. I mean, we had a.
You said you were the equipment manager at that point too. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The equipment guy.
You were the guy.
I like manager and like I'm just like that kind of guy. You know. I mean, I think part of that goes. I grew up. My grandpa was a farmer. I don't really consider myself a farmer. I'm like a social drinker. If farming was drinking,
and you can talk about farming too, right?
Yeah, so. I can fake it till I make it. But like you didn't have like a job. Like all right, it's like oh you're doing this. But anyways, so we had a little bit of everything. I mean, we had one brand of wheel loader that we used. We had like both Cat and Komatsu excavators. Skid steers were Case for whatever reason.
I'm assuming you had to have cranes.
No cranes.
Really?
Nope. Yeah, we did. We used cranes like 2 or 3 times in the time I was there, and usually that was like so we did a sanitary sewer lift station, the one I'm thinking of, and it had a control house that came with it, and it was prefabricated, so it came on a truck like a lowboy, the whole house with all the the electronic stuff that monitors the flow and turns the pumps on and off. That all came in like a pre-made house. They make it in a factory somewhere, and it comes. We used a crane to set that, but we did pretty much everything as far as like setting heavy stuff just with the excavator. And we had quick coupler on there. You take the bucket off, and it's got a hook on there.
That's slick then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just didn't know. Probably some of those drainage tubes get pretty big. So I didn't know if you had to use a crane then at that point, or if an excavator would work, or a wheel loader.
One of the owners of the company was a farmer too, so we used what we had.
Well, I get it.
And then part of it is you've already got the cost of the excavator there on the job. You
do.
And so it's there. You're paying that guy already. If you need to bring in a crane, that's another guy who doesn't know the crew. Cranes are really expensive.
They are.
Cranes can't drive anywhere like an excavator can on steel tracks. You can pretty much go wherever you want. The biggest pipe I've ever seen installed was, well, it depends. Round pipe was 120 inch, so 10-foot ID. So we set that with 2 excavators, a 300 and a 400.
Whoa!
So 2 guys working together, and one guy picked one side, one guy picked the other side.
That's a serious water flow right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an overflow, and then it went into the deep tunnel project. So there's like a drop shaft. So I don't know all the details.
Well, you said deep tunnel project, and then my brain went,
I'm not talking.
What?
Never mind. I'm not supposed to talk about our exes.
My brain was like, wait, deep tunnel project.
Long time
elaborate.
ago, when I could still remember, the city of Chicago and the MWRD, Midwest Water Reclamation District. So it's like a sanctioning body, and they put in this deep tunnel. They dug. It's like 200 and some feet deep, and it's similar to like what I was talking about before. It's like an overflow system.
Okay.
As you build up, municipal areas, you get less pervious surface, so every time it rains, it's got to go somewhere.
It's got to go somewhere.
So, flooding problems. And then that was part of why we did all those storm sewer projects, is because they used to use combined sewer. So the sanitary sewer from your toilet and the storm went down the same pipe. As you get more houses with sanitary water and more or less pervious surface, you get more, and it just overflows, and so it backs up, and the streets would flood with storm water like every time it rains. But so they put in this project that was like 200 and some feet deep, and it's just this big ass tunnel that connects underneath like all over the suburbs and in Chicago. So the purpose of it is it's an overflow for when such and such town's stormwater can't keep up, it dumps into that, and then that's kind of like a holding system. And then I think there's pumps that will then pump it into like the Des Plaines River or something when everything kind of catches up. So
freaking cool.
Yeah.
Because when Royce was on here, he was telling about how they would make the drainage containers underneath parking lots.
Yeah, storm trap.
Yeah, storm traps.
Yeah.
And I thought that was freaking genius.
We never did that where I worked, but that was it's kind of something I wanted to do. I got a couple people that I work with now who do stuff like that. It's just, you're basically building a parking garage underground just to store water.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
It's really expensive, but real estate's expensive too.
It's better than flooding the streets.
Well, the other option would be to dig a regular detention pond to hold it above water.
But you gotta have land to do that.
Well, you gotta have land. You have the land, but you can't park on it then. So if you do the underground, the storm trap situation, then you can still park on it. I don't think you can build a building on it, but one of the last jobs I was on was, we didn't do the storm trap, but it was for one of the governmentals. We did the sewer, or the storm sewer that went into the storm trap, and then they tore up this whole park, put this giant storm trap underneath it, and then they put the park back, basically. So it's baseball fields and that kind of stuff. I mean, you'd never know it was there now, but it's like, it was like 14 feet deep. That would be like a crane setup. Like they had a crane for that, because
you would have to.
Well, you're set up in one spot, and you don't say you have to. There's no have to in sewer. It's just like, it looks good. And most of construction's that way. It's just being there long enough to know what you can and can't do.
Well, and that's the cool thing about guys like you and Royce and a few others that have been on here and then that I've talked with. Once you get that knowledge, you've got it. It's one of those things that once you have that, people come to you and be like, all right, Adam, this is what we're thinking about doing. Do you think it'll work? And you can go, nope. You know why? Because we did that once and it didn't work at all.
Yeah, it's like I didn't even do that, and I know that won't work.
Exactly. Or hey, we're doing this. Do you think it'll work? I go, yeah, I think we can get that done with the equipment that we have here in the right amount of time. Yeah, I think that'll work just fine. And then boom, you can get to work at that point.
Just eyeball it. Well, it's like, I mean, you're a heavier farm background than me, but like guys that know when to cut the hay, when to bale the hay.
Mm-hmm.
You just you smell it. You like it? I remember Kevin, I was on Kevin Ziller's farm once, and we were messing around at the dairy farm, and we were supposed to chop silage, and his dad was off doing something else. And he's like, well, we're all like ready to go. We're like 17, 18 years old, like, let's chop the shit out of that silage, And you got to wait till the corn's just right, because if you do it too wet, it's too wet. If you wait too long, it's too dry. And he's like, so his dad's like talking to him over the next telephone, like, well, so we chopped,
what are you doing?
We chopped like a third of a wagon, and then he's like, all right, well, Kevin's like, all right, well, how do I know, and then he's like, well, you squeeze it, and then like, does it run out like a little bit or like a lot? And he's like, I don't know. Are we talking about prom night or silage? Like,
yeah, no kidding. And the funny thing is, it's like in today's world now, they've got moisture sensors and all this kind of stuff that are on these machines. You can go out and get started and go, nope, moisture's too high. We got to wait a day or two.
Well, like I remember riding in my grandpa's Gleaner combine. We didn't know what the hell the moisture was. We didn't know what the hell the yield was. Like, Stotty's told you all that shit after you brought it in. And there was no like loading a semi. Like we loaded 4 DMI wagons and that maybe took 3 days. And then Grandpa and Uncle Paul jumped on the things and ran them into town, and then like we had the
and then you get in and you're like, okay.
We had the scooper thing that would tell you the moisture, and it probably ran on one of them batteries that was like the size of a 6-pack of beer,
right? Back then, that's what they had. The moisture sensors back then. So you'd combine a little bit, and then you reach in the grain tank and scoop it out and set it, make sure it's on a nice level ground, and make sure the weight thing works, and you pour it in there, and then it's going to be, oh, shit, it's 24%. We better wait.
And now you stare at the Game Boy on the column pillar, and you're like, oh, 19.5%. We're doing pretty good.
You click the button, and you kick back like this, and you turn the radio up a little bit, and you go, yep, 19.5. That's perfect. That's right where I want it. Oh, by the way, this is what the average yield is right now, too.
Yeah.
Life is good.
250 bushels.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just seen a test plot come out here couple days ago, and that test plot, they had 4 numbers that went over 300.
Wow. Like I remember, so my mom dated a farmer when I was probably like in high school age, and I'd run auger wagon or grain cart depending on which side of the fence you're standing on. Shelling or picking, we'll fight over that in the parking lot. And like I remember like 200, 250 was like
And that's
like
still,
the president's gonna come.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, 250 bushel corn is good corn. It really is good corn.
But 300 was like unheard of. I remember reading, like, I think I was in high school in FFA, and we had all the magazines, and they're like, this is Bob Smith from blah 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 Iowa. He made a full field that averaged 307. And we're like, oh my god.
And it still takes a lot of talent to get that today.
It's like a 500 foot of pipe kind of day.
Yeah, kind of. Exactly. it still takes talent. It still takes managing it the right way. It still takes a little bit of Mother Nature helping you out along the way as well to get to those yields. I mean, it's not just plant it in the ground, spray it once, put a little nitrogen to it, and pick it. No. To get 300 bushel corn, you got to be doing some things
well,
right.
That's like you want the Wagyu beef, or you want the Holstein that didn't make it. Exactly. That was born a steer by accident. Like we didn't even want you. You were supposed to be a heifer.
You're right.
Go over there and eat hay till you're fat enough to be a cheeseburger.
And we're gonna knock your nuts off, and then at that point, we're gonna turn you into a cheeseburger. At that point,
well, and that's the thing, and I have the privilege and disprivilege to live in two parts of society. I spent so much of my life in the suburbs when I was doing all that work, and a lot of the guys I worked with, and they just have no idea how farming works. And it's like, yep, we just get out and we shoot our shotgun and we make out with our cousin, and then bam, there's corn.
Make sure to feed the dog. I mean,
it's like, make sure there's Tim McGraw in the CD player. I want to hear Leonard Skinner.
You are diverse. You spent so much time in by the city. You could probably drive there tonight with your lives. With blindfolded. You could drive there tonight and then know exactly where to go.
I remember the pothole on Gulf Road that was there for years, and I just got into the habit I would swerve. We always did all these jobs in Evanston, so I took the same way from our yard. And I remember it was Gulf Road, and I can picture the intersection. I can't think of the cross street, but there was a manhole cover that settled and needed to be adjusted. It was a terrible pothole, so I'd always swerve around it, and then I'd swerve wide because I was usually pulling a trailer, and then I'd hit it with the truck before the trailer because that'll mess you up worse than that.
But what I'm saying is you could probably go in there and you already know the nice places to eat, the places to stay away from, that kind of thing. A guy like me, I'd go in there and be like, "Hey, this neighborhood looks good," and then I'd walk into the wrong neighborhood. But that's just that's my stupidity, I guess. That's probably what would happen.
Well, I don't know that I'd know any nice places to eat or stay because I was always there just to work, and I was ready to get home.
The hell home.
So for pretty much the whole time, I had an hour commute minimum for the whole time. I remember we were doing a job at Northwestern University, so I'd leave my house in Marengo, and I'd drive to Northwestern to where I could see Lake Michigan. If I was any good at sports, I'd have thrown a football into the lake from the spot. I mean, we did a bunch of jobs in the same area over all the years, and there's an outfall for the steam tunnels, and the guys would show up early and catch salmon. Some of the guys on the crew that I was working with,
kidding.
Because they in the fall time, this time of year, they'd come into that steam. It's the steam release for the university because they heat and cool everything with steam, and they have an overflow. It goes out this little drainage.
Oh, so I'm sure the water was warm.
The water was warm, so they were all coming in there, and they were just catching the shit out of all those salmon.
Eat it right there, huh?
No, well,
salmon's one of the. Just a side note, salmon's one of the only
this
fish.
Whole show's a side note.
Yeah, you catch a salmon, you can bite right into it, scales and all.
Really?
Eat it. Yep.
Well, next time I run across a salmon, I'll give
Thank
that
you,
a
Bear
shot.
Grylls, for that, by the way. Bear Grylls is the man. Anyway, so it's one of those where if you catch one, the scales are small enough, we can digest everything. You can just bite right into the side of it and eat it up.
I worked with a bunch of Serbian guys. I'm surprised they didn't do that. Yeah, it's like working with 6 Borats.
Were they located in Chicago then, or the suburbs of Chicago?
Yeah, suburbs.
A lot closer than probably you were, though.
Yeah, I mean, they were in Addison, Glendale Heights,
yeah,
Elmhurst.
They were
people
20
like us
minutes
would
away.
consider that Chicago. But once I was in there and spent enough time, I realized, there's a whole bunch of other towns. We never actually did any work, almost never, in Chicago. Chicago proper, they'd call it, because there's a bunch of other requirements of minorities, and you have to have so many people that live in the city of Chicago to do a public job and all that kind of stuff. But we got as close as you could, literally. We did 2 jobs that were technically in the city of Chicago, but luckily they were really, really close. I mean, some of them were actually closer to get to and from than some of our suburb jobs, because when you start going north in Lake County, it gets really crappy to get to this part. And then when you start going south of the city, it gets crappy. So we had Orland Park was one. We did a couple down there, which is a cruise. It wasn't a bad job. It was just a long way. It was 70 miles one way.
That had to get old, doesn't it? Driving that far.
I listen to a lot of podcasts. I used to listen to a lot of WGN radio. And I was always on the phone too. So I always, like we were talking about before, when you're driving, you got to make use of your time. So, if I had to call for parts or, check on like the crews, like, hey, are you guys going to be done with that trench box? Because, Bill needs it on his job over there. And in the mornings when you're up early, it's kind of nice to just kind of have it's kind of quiet. If you get up early enough, there's not really any traffic.
No, not going that way. Well, I mean, early enough, 4:35 o'clock early. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, like what the conversation that I was having with you earlier, when I was in sales and I was always going out to see customers or whatever, you got to make use of that time because otherwise it's just dead time. You're just driving. That's to me, that was the perfect opportunity to make phone calls to old customers that I had sold to. Hey, how's that piece of equipment running? Mm-hmm. You look what are you looking for in the near future? I'll keep my eye open for you. Or the customer that you have sent 15 quotes to and they've never bought anything from you. So you call them up and be like, hey, did you look at that last quote I sent you? Did I say something? I mean, I didn't mean to, I was just joking the last time we talked. I didn't know she was your
cousin when I asked her out, okay?
Exactly. So it's a great opportunity to make use of your time when you're driving like that. Absolutely. And podcasts, I mean, I think podcasts are freaking awesome. I just do. I listen to podcasts. Like right now we're mowing ditches for the township. And I would say between half and 3/4 of the day I listen to podcasts. Mm-hmm. And it's stuff that intrigues me. It's stuff that I want to learn about. It's stuff that it's in the back of my brain, like, how the hell do they do this? Or why is it this way? And those are the podcasts that I love to listen to because it just gets the brain flowing in.
I never really got into many of the deep ones, like Joe Rogan. I've never really listened to a lot of him. I'd like to. I hear he's pretty sharp. He's got a lot of stuff, but I also, if I start one, I want to finish it, and they're historically long.
Historically long. And I'm on one of his right now. It's 5 hours.
Wow.
I'm only
you should just drive to Des Moines. Bam, done.
I'm only about halfway through it. I started it 2 days ago.
I think halfway to Des Moines would be about Moline.
Exactly. But some of them are only 2 hours long. 2.5 hours long. So
going on the other side, one that I did listen to, I still listen to, but it's a little different now. Mike Rowe's podcast, especially when it first came out, and he did kind of like the Paul Harvey, mode. They were supposed to be 5 to 7 minutes long. I love those. Well, he does it different now. He doesn't do it, it's an hour long, and it's more like a traditional podcast with the guests, which I still like because Mike Rowe's the dude. But because I grew up, WGN was always on at my grandpa's farm, and so to confuse me even more.
Everybody around here listens to WGN,
right? Are you cool or no? But my uncle's name is Paul. My grandfather's name is Harvey, so my uncle's name was Paul Harvey. So my grandma would always call him Paul Harvey. And she'd say, Paul Harvey, it's time for lunch, because we'd always be out there doing whatever on the farm. And I'm like, how come he sounds so different on the radio? I was, you're a little kid. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? You should be more famous.
That's funny.
Why does your truck smoke?
Yeah, I'm sure it's the truck.
Now, the rest of the story.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. But yeah, I think people can learn so much from podcasts if you're willing to sit and listen.
Between podcasts and YouTube, and I mean, there's a bunch of other things, but if you just narrow it down to those things and you weed out the garbage and the drama and Facebook too, because I'm in a bunch of when I bought my Mack truck a while back, I got into.
Yeah, that looked pretty sharp, by the way.
Yeah, it's got no axles right now. It doesn't look as sharp. It's a work in progress. Have kids and try and restore a Mack, they said. It'll be fun, they said.
That's an R model, right?
Yeah, it's an 83 R model, 300 Mack engine with a twin stick 6-speed.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. So that truck was my dad's when he worked for Stotty's Elevator. They bought it brand new in 83, and it was his. So he put 600,000 miles on it when it was new, and then he left that job to go haul ready mix and worked for a ready mix company, but they still had it. It was the last of the trucks they bought new. And then DeLong's bought the elevators in Marengo, and I knew just from small town, I knew Dave Stotty and Greg, and so when my dad passed away, I knew they still had the truck there from, people like, they were spotting trailers with it and whatever. And I ran into Greg, I think actually at the pole in Riley Township pole place. And I'm like behind him in line. I'm like, hey, I heard you got the deputy dog still. That's back then they put numbers on them, but they all had names.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So, like there's, and they had a guy who would, hand paint everything. Vinyl hadn't been invented yet.
Mm-hmm.
It was 1864. General Custer had just stormed the Potomac. So, there's a dog. It's like kind of like, it's like a caricature of the deputy dog cartoon, but it's a little different. And then like, so that was like my dad's truck, and he drove it, and he used to tell me about it. Well, when my dad died, I wanted to park it at the church for his funeral. So I asked Greg, he's like, in a matter of words, he said, yeah, it's kind of a piece of shit. I don't think you wanted it at your dad's funeral, but he churched it up. He's like, it's rusted on the cab and here and there. And, so I messaged him one day on Facebook. I'm like, hey, and he had mentioned like if you wanted to restore it or something, like maybe we'd sell it to you, and it left it at that. It was like a month or two later, and I was like, hey, were you serious about that? I'm just curious. And then like a month or so later, he messaged me back while I happened to be at Clausen's Tavern with my
that's
buddy.
A great establishment.
Yeah,
it's a great establishment down there in Union.
1900 Ested 1900. Allegedly, the moose on the wall is older than 1900.
Allegedly.
We'll get into that one later. That'll be part 3. So he messaged me, and he's like, so do you really want to buy it? And I don't know if you know my Brian Miller. He's one of my.
Oh yeah, I know Brian.
I've known him since we were kids.
Yeah, he's good.
So we're
shit.
in there, we were having a Busch Light tasting.
I'm sure they were fantastic.
They were uncommonly smooth. No, that's Red Dog. The mountains were
Red Dog. The mountains aren't blue on Busch Light. Yeah. Sorry, that's the other one.
These ones, the sky's blue. Maybe we'll call it the Blue Sky beer. And he's like, would you be interested in buying it? And I don't remember if he told me the price then or a different time. And Brian's like, dude, do it. So I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And then I bought the thing for him. I didn't pay very much for it. And he's like, the clutch is out, like the batteries were all dead. Like they backed off the brakes and pull started it. And then I was like, oh, come pick it up. He's like, no, I'm just going to drive it to your house, because if you die, I'm going to feel really bad. And then when he gets to my house with it, and he's like, where should I park it? I'm like, just wherever I can move. He's like, no, we pull started it. Like, wherever it sits, it's going to be there for a while. I'm like, okay, just park it right there. Well, I ran to town and got batteries. I was driving around that afternoon. But the clutch is, it's out of it completely now. But a buddy of mine adjusted it because it would slip. Like, no trailer or anything. Like, if you got on it, you could just see the tack go like this and the speedometer go like this. Uh-oh. I'm not a math magician, but those two things don't correlate.
They're not supposed to do that.
Mm-hmm. So.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, so we cleaned it up. I got it working. I did a bunch of videos of it, actually, on my YouTube channel.
I didn't know you had a YouTube channel.
I do. I haven't really done anything on it in, Charlie's 2, so about 2.5 years.
Did not know that. Well, might as well tell us what your YouTube channel name is.
It's called Everyday American.
Love it.
Yep.
Love the name.
I kind of like you with your podcast. I was just like, I learned so much from strangers, and I just want to be that stranger for somebody else. Like,
I gotta look it up
for
now.
25 cents a day. You could help a hillbilly restore a Mack truck. So, and then I started the channel right before I got the Mack. And then it just turned into like, what's more patriotic than a guy fixing up his dad's old truck, And that's what I was doing with all my time. So, and I kind of like the hobby of like the editing the videos and making them. Like, as I did it, I got better at it.
Oh yeah, it's no different than this.
Well, I mean, it's just.
You look at my first 10, 12 videos. Great people I've had on them, but everything sucked beyond that. I mean, I sucked beyond that. My equipment sucked beyond that. I'm trying to get better every day. Same thing.
I got to say I've only watched a few of your podcasts because
it's okay.
Because they're not on iTunes. If they were on iTunes, I'd have burned through all of them.
I know.
Every time you bring it up on Facebook, I'm like, iTunes, and you're like, wow, yeah, thanks.
The problem is,
and I don't know how that works. It's probably pretty difficult for you to done it.
It's not simple. Like, I just got the Spotify. I just put everything.
I heard
on Spotify.
2 shots of penicillin and that'll go away. But
You're probably not wrong.
Wait the 2 weeks and get the second one, even if its symptoms improve.
I haven't really looked into iTunes. I've had a couple of people say, "Hey, you got to put it on iTunes." It's like, well, I mean, I get it, but I've only got so much time today. I don't do this full time, you know? So there's only so much time that I got to edit, upload.
Well, and that's the thing when I was making videos is you watch YouTube videos and you get critical of like, well, that sucks. And then when you do it and then you think about like to do a good one and like edit it and put like an intro and all that kind of stuff. Not that it's a lot of, it's not difficult, but it takes effort.
It takes time. Everything takes time.
And
to go back through this, I mean, I literally... When I get done with an episode, I literally listen to the whole thing again. Mm-hmm. I re-listen to it to make sure that, the sound is right here and the video's right there.
Do you like tweak with it after the fact?
I can. I depending on what it is, I usually try to set it like how we've been talking. Everything, you're coming in crystal clear in this. I'm coming in crystal clear.
Breaker.
Exactly. So probably not the audio part of it. But I do try to brighten things or dim things, and all of a sudden we'll get to a spot, and I'm like, man, I don't like how this went together, so we're gonna cut this and actually move it later on down the line.
And try and make it look like it was like there, And any of those videos that you look at on my channel, I did all of them on my iPhone, the whole thing. Like I shot them on the iPhone. I edit them on the iPhone. So, I mean, like, you can do it, and I think it's pretty easy. It's just that it takes time.
Right.
You know? And then it got to the point where my one iPhone was, like, broken or whatever, but the camera still works.
Bye.
So that became just a phone. Or just a camera.
Uh-huh.
But then, like, what sucks is, like, with that, like, you get one shot, and then, like, maybe the camera tipped over. Like, it's all working on stuff. So, like, the last thing you want is when you're, like, trying to focus on something, you're like, oh, let me move this. Every thing that you're doing takes 3 times as long.
It does.
And then like the actual video itself. So like a lot of the videos that I made were like 5, maybe 10 minutes long. I tried to keep them kind of short, and to the point, which is difficult for me. And then you'd end up with like 3 times of that. It'd take you an hour to make a 5-minute video maybe or more, and then like to upload it. I live out in the country. Our internet's still run by a hamster on a wheel, so like, and then if you try to like upload it while you're at home and like trying to do anything, it's like the lights get dim and your phone starts smoking.
Come on, microwave, keep working that food that you're making for me right now.
You'd have to like plug it in the kitchen and then like lock it so the screen stays open and be like, see you in the morning, babe.
Well, see, that's the uploading is the biggest thing for me.
And you don't realize it until you've done it.
Yeah, and
it's like you got the eye now, like that guy who can like look at a roof and be like, that roof needs replaced, or like that concrete's ready to finish.
Like I can almost guarantee
you. How's the moisture on your podcast?
Exactly. I can almost guarantee you. I know that, but by the time I upload it to YouTube and or Spotify or both.
Yeah, because you put yours on YouTube, just the same thing.
It's 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It takes me 3 hours.
It's at
Give
least 3 times the length of whatever it is, and I had some that were worse than that. And
my biggest thing is like I want to upload it when I'm here. So if I lose power or something and I'm gone, it's not uploading. You actually got to restart the upload all over again. Or if my computer crashes,
that is.
Trust me, I've figured out all the bads and the pros and the cons on all this, but this is the part that I like. Mm-hmm. This is the part that I truly enjoy. Yeah. If somebody said, hey, Kyle, I'll come edit all your videos and do everything for you, I'd be like, hell yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. I almost have, not that I'd ever find anybody that wanted to do that. I haven't made a video in a long time. It's probably been at least 2 years.
Making so much money from YouTube, you don't need them anymore, huh?
Exactly. The video that I have that has the most views, and so for a while, I haven't uploaded enough, so I'm not like, they won't pay me anymore. And I never set up the account, so I made money for a while. I don't know where the Army must have kept that money, because I ain't never seen a dime.
Well, good for the Army, I guess. At least it went to a good cause if it went to the Army.
$1 million wound.
Delicious.
Oh God, that's cold.
I do like to have cold beer. I mean, especially for guys taking time out of their day to come over. I'm going to give you something cold.
But what I was saying, the video that I have, it's got like 100,000 views. It's this can crusher I bought off of Amazon that I thought was cool. So I made kind of like a joke video about it. Like
100,000 views. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's a lot, dude.
That's what she said. Not to me, but
well, somebody, I'm sure.
But yeah, and it's just like I got this can crusher and I thought it was cool, and the camera thing was like there because I had like done like, and I'm like, this will be funny, and it just like blew up out of nowhere. And then like there's all these videos I've made about like the Mac, like stuff that I've researched and found out about, and then it's like 37 views. I'm like, it's just me being like you'd find me at like 10:30 at night by a bonfire. I'm just like, look at that son of a bitch go! She just crushes them and eats. You know, it's like I like channeled my inner like NASCAR announcer. You know, and I was like, wham, 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 and then I set up the timer and I time lapsed it. I'm like, how fast? So my idea that I never finished, what I was gonna get like a couple buddies and I was gonna do can ram can crusher versus 30 pack, and it was gonna be like us setting up the can crusher and then like you know like you and me and a couple dudes, and then we like open a 30 pack and drink it responsibly with rides home from our mothers.
Absolutely.
And then we see how long it takes to crush 30 beers. Well, 30 cans in the can crusher. But we had to make the empty cans first. Was going to be the joke. And then
I'm game. You let me know when you want to do that. I'll come over and do it.
If I'd have just pieced all the like weekends over the last 6 months, I could have like a 600 can.
600 can.
My arm hurts, Dad. Keep crushing.
Is it
aluminum
like
prices?
Is it like a handheld?
Yeah, it's just
crusher?
a plastic thing. It's like $20 I bought it on Amazon. It's called Can Ram.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Works good, I'm assuming, then, huh?
It's got like this hopper on it on the top, so it holds 10, and then it falls down and it crushes them, and then there's a little slit out of the back, and it falls down into the garbage can.
I think I've seen
Chris
that.
Seegers has one, so you know it's good.
Yeah, if Chris has got it.
He's one of the leading grain marketers in all of Northern Illinois.
I had him on my podcast.
I watched it. That was good, because, you know, I've been going in the elevator, well, when I was a kid. Since I was a kid. I don't go much anymore. They asked me to leave. You're not buying, you're not selling. Get the fuck out of here, kid.
Quit bothering us.
You don't even have a farm. I just like the way it smells in fall with the bees' wings. But, you know, you take it there, you dump it in the pit, and you're like, what the hell happens next? You know, and I remember, like when I was a kid, my grandpa and my uncle and people, like, storing it on paper and sending it to the river. And, you know, my dad drove for Stotties for so long, so he had that side of things. It was just what you talked about growing up. And then when I'm like, huh, so they're going to buy it and then they're going to sell it, and they got to figure out, you know, because like somebody's got to buy that shit after you take it to the bin, you know, it doesn't just like miracle its way.
I felt bad because I kept having to tell Chris, like, man, you got to dumb it down for me, because you're way up here, and like, I thought I was a smart guy until I started talking to you, and now I'm way down here.
Well, and it was
you got to
good, though.
dumb it up for me a little.
Because I haven't seen him much lately, but, you know, when you hang out with Chris, and I've always been like, what exactly would you say you do here? You know?
No, it was a very, very informative one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I learned so much from his podcast. Mm-hmm. From how they market with their customers, and then how they have to sell it to make a profit, and how it goes to chicken farms down in Texas, and it was just mind-boggling.
And like timing the rail cars.
I didn't have a clue on all that.
Yep, we got a couple coming your way. You better get ready, you know.
Oh, by the way, they'll probably be there in 48 hours. It's like, what? 3,200 bushel a piece times
Greg,
100
your
of
vacation's canceled.
Exactly.
Baptize your kid another day. There'll be holy water next Sunday. Come on.
You gotta tell your wife to hold off on the birth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, that's probably too far, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, it was just a great one to learn how all that works. You know, I mean, you know, from the farming side of things, I had an idea, but I didn't have a clue. I mean, come to find out, I didn't have a clue really. So those are the podcasts I really like to enjoy those, you know, because you learn something from them every time.
Well, I mean, I think
and
that's
just
kind
like
of the
from
point,
you.
and it's like, you know, well, like what you're saying, we all have our own like little corners of the world we grew up in. We all know our own thing, you know. That's like when I was working construction, you know, we had that guy, like, he did commercial wall forms for 20 years, and then, you know, then he comes over here, so he knows that thing, you know, or you know, the carpenter that's done a million, you know, I had. People say I'm smart. I'm just like repeating stuff I've been hearing since I was a kid. You know,
But that makes you smart.
I was just lucky enough to appreciate it and hold on to it
and
you
learn
know?
it. Yeah,
and like all that craftsmanship and you know, all that stuff that goes with it. You know, and it's just like farming, like you were talking about, like you don't just throw some seeds out there and go drink Busch Lights for 4 months and come back in the fall and your corn does 300 bushel.
Exactly.
So, to share all that stuff, that's what I was saying. Like with podcasts and with YouTube, you can just learn so much on your own. Oh, I want to fix such and such. Pull it up on YouTube. Oh, all right. Well, that'll get me started anyways.
The how-tos on YouTube is amazing. I didn't know jack shit about a lot of things. And I'm like, let's see if YouTube's got a how-to, how to do this. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I think I can do that. And then boom, it's done. And that's like, hell yeah. I didn't have to call a professional or nothing. Yeah. I just saved me $50. It's just awesome to be able to do this and to enjoy it and learn something with every person that's coming.
Well, and the benefit of, basically the internet, because that's how we're going to listen to this, or
absolutely
with YouTube, how you're going to watch is you can share it so much easier. We don't need like the Pony Express to travel it to and then you sit down, like you're in your truck driving to work and you turn it on, and you're like, oh, hey, I didn't know they had trench boxes. Never heard of it.
Exactly. Well, and the other thing was,
we could do a whole hour on start to finish on that if you.
You just think about like when we were kids. You wanted to rent a movie. What'd you do? You went to Blockbuster.
Yeah.
And it was all on a VHS. They started with DVDs, but a lot of it was on VHS.
Yeah.
And
it was $1 if you didn't rewind.
Exactly. And all of that was pre-recorded, put out there, and then you had to go find it to rent it, to watch your movie or whatever.
And now YouTube and Facebook figures out what kind of hillbilly shit you're into, and they're just feeding it to you. You're like, I do want to know how to build a still in my backyard. How did you know?
I do like moonshine. But, it's not illegal to make moonshine.
It's just illegal to sell it because of taxation reasons.
You got it.
I know a lot of weird stuff.
See, I know a lot of weird stuff. That's why I brought it up, because you said still, and it made me think of that. Yeah, you can make moonshine.
Weird dude.
Yeah.
It's like the tail end of. You ever seen that movie Out Cold?
Out Cold.
The ski movie. This is one that was on DVD.
On DVD.
Yeah.
Well, at least you got it on DVD, not VHS.
And
it sounds familiar.
It's like a stoner ski movie or whatever. I don't know, but they all live on the ski mountain, whatever. It's the end of the movie, and the guy's like, I got something I want to tell you all, And he's like, yeah, you're gay. It's no big deal. He's like, actually, I was going to say I'm adopted, but he's like, it's okay. If you weren't gay, you'd be a pretty weird dude. I was like, that just like, if you weren't, and then you're like, well, if you weren't a mechanic, you'd be a pretty weird dude, It's like, if you talked about corn bushels that much and you weren't a farmer, you'd be a pretty weird dude, You can use it for anything.
You can use it
it's
for
like,
anything.
That's what she said.
Exactly. It all goes together in the same hand.
That's what she said.
Do you do auctioneering too?
I'd like to. I have a little bit of. That's one of the things. I can't find a YouTube video on how to level the deck on a John Deere 345. It's all 425s, 455s.
Same thing. They're all the same.
No, it's different. We'll get into that later. But if I had the time and I had the energy, I'd like to be like a legit auctioneer. Like I can kind of fake it now. Like when I started my new job where I'm at now, they had you fill out this like thing, and then they like blast this email to like everybody in the company every time they hire somebody new. And it was like, and it's just like kind of like BS, like get to know each other. And so I was like, I'm going to be real about it, And it's like, I'm father, husband, 2 kids, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, what's something that might be, on your bucket list, and or name 2 things. And then one of them was like, I'd like to be an auctioneer. So then like, I don't work in the same place. So every time I went, like after that email, they're like, do the thing. Can you really do the thing? Do the thing. And they're like, wow, that. And then a lot of them are like the ladies in the office who've never like heard
an auctioneer before.
Yeah, so like, wow, you're really good. I'm like, I really suck, but thank you. Right about right, boy. What are you gonna get for him, man? I got a 45. You can give me 50. Looking for 50. 50. Got a 55 over here. 55. Yep, looking at 60. Up, looking for 60. We got 55 with a man in a red hat. Looking for 60. I'm a little out of practice. I used to do that while I would drive back and forth to work, too. Honestly, if I didn't have any phone calls to make and I was burnt out on podcasts, I just auctioned shit up. Hey, I got a Volkswagen over here coming on right now. It's a nice one. Side. But like... A
little rust in the door, missing a back windshield.
I always liked the auction champ, but then I always like got a kick out of like a Gordon Stoddy auction. He, like I remember being at the county auction, and they were auctioning something off, and it had a bunch of shovels in the back. And he's like, "We're gonna auction these shovels off, separate choice. We got shovels right here. Coming on, boys. What are we gonna get for them? We'll do choice. We'll do choice. Come on, they're nice. There's not even any rust on the handle. Come on now,
He's so good at it. So good at it. And like Max does a little auction. I mean, he can auctioneer just as good as anybody.
Max's dad was like a real auctioneer, wasn't he? I mean, I shouldn't say real, but like
he was very good too. He was very good too. I can't tell you if he actually went out and helped auctioneer stuff off, but that'd be the best way to do it is find
like a charity auction or something.
Yeah, and then just go do it, and then you'll figure out real quick if this will work for you. I
won't charge you because I would feel bad if you paid me for this.
I'm doing it because I enjoy doing it, and it's an auction, practice. And you never know. You never know where it could go from there.
There's old boy like straight that way.
Yep,
he's an auctioneer.
He is.
I talked to him once. That's pretty much all I have to say about that.
Andrew. Yeah.
I don't remember his name. My in-laws live right next door.
Yeah, they do.
And he was over like right when they moved in, and he's like, he's an auctioneer. I'm like, do you want to be best friends? Like, do you want to just exchange numbers and hang out right now? I kept dropping hints, like if you ever need a backup, or like if you ever sprain your ankle or anything, like you need like a fill-in, like, here's my number. Like
sprain your ankle.
You never know, Auctioneering is a pretty, you got to step up those steps to get into that truck with the camper on the top.
Oh, that just tickled my funny bone.
See, and this is why I've never made it as an auctioneer. Because you need a couple things. You need that camper with the big plexiglass window in it that opens, but it closes when it's cold. So the auctioneer is the only one who can feel his fingers. How many times you ever been to like a farm auction and it's like 0?
Cold as shit.
And that guy's up there and it's just like steaming out of the exhaust.
I don't even drink coffee, but you go get a hot coffee and you're like,
I'm just going to pour it down my chest.
No, I'm just going to hold on to it and warm my fingers up.
I got to pee. I'm just going to go. It'll be warm for a minute. So you need the old, it's got to be like at least 20 years old pickup with that thing on there. And you got to have a cowboy hat. Have you ever met a decent auctioneer without a cowboy hat?
I have. Andrew. He's the only one, though.
Oh, well, he was off duty, so I didn't think it counted. He didn't have one on at the time.
Okay, well, fair enough.
Batman doesn't wear the cape everywhere.
I agree.
When he's at Wayne Industries.
But you do have the 20-year-old truck.
Yeah, it's
1983 Mac.
It's an 83 looking for 84.
See, so you could literally
it's 40 years old.
You could literally build
I could put the camper thing on the back. Yeah. 2 stones, 1 bird. Little trick I learned in the Navy.
Just trying to help you out a little bit. Get that bucket list
with all my free time.
Well, you got so much free time.
Just like
you're here.
I know. My wife's called me 3 times.
Well, you could have taken it.
No, she didn't really.
Oh, okay. I was
she's very understanding of all my weird hobbies and side quests.
Good for her, right? Thank God.
Mm-hmm. Well, like when I worked construction and like what I do now, it's like, well, there's no like set schedule. It's like, well, we hit a water main. It's going to be a late one. It's like you see all the memes of like farmers, like being a farmer's wife is like, he says, I'll be home in 20 minutes and you never see him,
And then here he is at the bar.
She's a patient
rain
woman.
Day. No.
Rain Day. Never heard of her.
Uh-huh.
That was the up and down of like being the equipment manager. Cause like if it rained, I always had like a list of stuff to do. So, you still worked and you still got paid, but you didn't get drunk in the middle of the day like all your coworkers.
They're calling you up at noon, half shit-faced, and you're like, sorry, boys, I'm still at work.
Yeah, it's like,
got to get this done.
Somebody's got to clean the drapes, These tracks ain't going to polish themselves.
God. So did you, maintain all the equipment and stuff when you were there, too?
So we did, all what we would now consider compact equipment, like skid steers, rollers, mini excavators. We do all the oil changes and PMs, they're officially called, preventative maintenances.
Yeah, the greasing.
The operators would grease everything because they got paid grease time. So like on your machine, and then all of our big stuff, like excavators, wheel loaders, everything. We had a PM contract, so that I would get quotes for that every year, and then they'd give you set pricing for a 500 hour, 1,000, 1,500, etc. So that was quoted for the year.
Oh, that's slick then.
Well, and the thing is, it's just not feasible because on some of that equipment to change oil on it, it's 15 gallons of oil. So you need the lube truck like the dealerships or whoever has that sucks it all out because we were always on job sites. It's not like you're going to bring like a 90,000 pound machine back to the shop to change the oil.
Exactly.
And you're in all these upscale east of 47 neighborhoods. Like you spill a drop of oil, they're going to sue you and steal your children.
And OSHA and everything else.
OSHA, never heard of her.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So we'd always just plan, bid it out, and then that way it was a known cost, of what it was going to be, and then we also put it in our contract that those PMs were to be done outside of working hours. So like after 4 p.m. before 6 a.m. So they had one of the dealerships that we worked with had a guy who worked the night shift. Hated his family or something. So he would, he would come out at night and service it, which was nice because then we didn't have any downtime. Because, if you were like your mainline excavator or backhoe.
Yeah, you leave at 6, 7 o'clock at night. He comes out at 8 o'clock at night, services everything. And then when you're ready to go at 6 o'clock in the morning. He liked to come out at like
midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning for whatever reason. That was his thing. And then that way we didn't have to down a machine or like sub in something or something like that. And then he would take care of it. But, if you've got 15 gallons of oil, just for starters, that's 3 5-gallon buckets, for easy.
And that's just for engine oil. So, if you start getting into transmission and hydrostats and all that kind of stuff, it can be 50 gallons.
A 300 Komatsu takes 55 gallons of oil just to drain the tank. I found that out the hard way.
I think a lot of people have found.
You want to hear a Jeremy Books backed into a hole story?
Yeah.
So I was.
But you're not Jeremy Book.
No.
So this is going to be your story.
It'll be my story, but I'm going to give him the credit for letting letting it out there.
My guy last week told his story. About.
I haven't listened to that.
I won't give it away. I won't give it away.
No spoilers. So I'm like.
That was a good one, by the way.
I think I was 19. No, I was 20. I'm 20 plus or minus a year. It was like I had been working at the sewer company for like less than a full year at the time. And, I was running around doing everything. It was 2010. Things were really slow. So, I wanted to do the best I could. I want to get laid off. Need to get paid and all that stuff. So,
yep.
And so I was on this job and, one of the machines needed fuel and the fuel guy showed up. And so I jumped up and helped him and, filled the thing up. Well, fast forward like 2 hours, I'm back at our yard. We had a Komatsu 300 that was parked there because it wasn't working anywhere. Well, it was almost out of fuel, so we had a fuel tank that was on one of these trailers, and I went to go fill it up. Well, stupid me, go to the exact spot where it was on the Kobelco excavator in the morning, just pop the cap off, throw the thing in, start topping it off, going 100 miles an hour, trying to do everything at once. And, the thing kicks off that it's full. All right, cool. I jump on the machine and start running it, and I'm cycling it, and it just like pisses something all over the ground. Well, it had overflowed because I topped off the hydraulic tank with diesel fuel. I felt so bad. I didn't know, like, did I just blow this thing up? So, like, I called the dealership, the service manager who I had gotten to know just from buying parts.
From doing it.
Yeah, just from, being in the rhythm of things. And I'm like, hey, Mike. I'm like, hey, Mike, I think I really fucked up. Like, I just did this. He's like, oh, no, that's not that big of a deal. Back in the old days, we'd put 5 gallons in something like that and run it for a week to clean it all out. Because
I've heard that.
The diesel fuel is like a solvent. He's like, I don't think you did.
This podcast episode is sponsored by Dan's Diesel Performance. If you're looking to improve your truck's performance, efficiency, or appearance, check out Dan's Diesel Performance. They manufacture turbochargers, fuel injectors, fuel pumps, transmissions, intake piping, and much, much more. Plus, they offer all the top brands in the diesel industry. They're located in Machesney Park, Illinois. Visit their website at dansdieselperformance.com or give them a call at 815-977-5865.
Any damage, nothing's like gonna break. He's like, I would say you should probably, drain it out and refill it.
Yep.
So then I had to call my boss. I wanted to see like how bad did I fuck up and like, is this fixable before like I just like throw the keys to my work truck and like hitchhike home from Deerfield? Like, get in, you're too pretty to hitch. Nobody said that.
I'm about to say, you've been told that before, or?
No, that's from that 70s show. Pretty much everything I say is either a movie quote or a TV line. My wife had not seen the same library of movies as me. We've been dating for like a year and a half, and then like she's like, oh, that's why you say that. I thought you just got hit in the head with a rock as a kid, and I didn't have the heart to. So then I call my boss up, and I'm like, hey, I just want to let you know, kind of screwed up here. And I told him what happened. He's like, all right, well, I'm like, well, call the whoever. I'm like, well, I already did that, and he said it's not that big of a deal. And it was a Friday. Was it a Thursday or a Friday? Either way, I ended up coming in that Saturday. And I figured out what it took, and I bought the oil, came in. You know how much of a pain in the ass it is to drain 55 gallons of oil in 5-gallon buckets?
Yeah.
The only plus is the thing is so tall that like you could almost stand up underneath there. But so I drained it all out, and then my boss calls me up the following Friday because we kept track of all. He's like, "Hey, I see you didn't put down any time for Saturday. I know you went in there and did that." I'm like, "Well, I already screwed it up and cost you a shitload of money because I know what that oil costs. I figure I'm just trying to make it right." He's like, "Well, you're trying to do the right thing, so I'm going to pay you for 8 hours for work." And I'm like, "Well, I was only there for 4, so don't." So really, like, you definitely don't need to pay me for 8. I'd rather you pay me for none. He's like, "Oh, it's okay. You did the right thing, and you were honest with me." And so I was like, "Oh, that was probably maybe one of the biggest ones."
Oh man,
we had an oil filter that crapped out on a skid steer that was determined by the warranty department to be not my fault. Case warranted, the engine blew. We changed the oil on the thing, and the O-ring broke and like pissed oil on. Well, one of the laborers was running it and didn't realize it was leaving a trail of oil. Like they called me to go out to the job. I could tell exactly where he was.
I'll just follow that.
Follow the breadcrumbs in 1540. And then the funny thing was, Case was like, "Oh yeah, we've had that happen a couple of times. They warranted the whole thing."
Wow.
Yeah. So, and luckily it was a Case oil filter because like nobody else would cross.
Cross numbers and get a Fram or a CarQuest.
At least at that time it wouldn't cross to anything. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm only buying Case oil filters for this one because if this happens again.
We last winter we had one of our plow trucks blow the main line, the main hydraulic line that goes from the pump on the engine all the way back to the valve block, which is underneath the bed. And it was
for the hydraulic,
for the
central hydraulic,
for the main fucking hydraulics on that thing. We get a phone call. I get a phone call. It's like, so-and-so's out on such and such road and the plows won't lift up. I'm like, uh-oh. So, all right, I'll head out that way. And of course, we're all plowing snow, snowing like a bitch out. Mm-hmm. I get up to the top of the road.
Only breaking shitty weather.
I know. So I get up to the top of the road and I'm like, well, I see his problem. I can see it right in the middle of the friggin' road.
I followed him for 3 miles.
Oh my God. Oh, it wasn't 3 miles. It was 700-800 feet. Oh. That was it. It was a 3/4 inch hydraulic line that blew on that.
I'll leave a mark.
So we had to go back at the loader, chain everything up, get it back to the shop. And I started looking at this hose. I'm like, this is going to suck.
Hoses.
It was like 26 feet, something like that.
Oh, wow.
24 feet. It goes from the front all the way to the back. And of course, the one that's on so there's a valve block that's on the back side underneath the bed of the truck. And that's what runs like your salt spreader.
Yeah, it's the manifold that probably comes off the central hydraulic pump on the engine, and then it goes back.
Well, this is the supply line that supplies that valve. That was the line that blew. Mm-hmm. Oh, my God.
Hoses are like so simple and like so terrible at the same time. Like
such a pain in the ass.
I just had 2 in the last month go on my mini excavator, and it's just like, if you're not watching close, it's one of those like, why is that? I'm like, man, this thing smells like hydraulic oil. I'm like, this reminds me of the old days at the sewer company. And then like I look down at my feet, I'm like, shit.
There it is.
Call the fire department. This one's out of control.
Yeah, sometimes those breakdowns can suck. And like that was really kind of a minor breakdown, but you blow through 40 gallons of hydraulic oil and you got to buy the line, which, hydraulic hoses aren't cheap anymore.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's just life. It's the way it goes.
If it's got, I'm going to try and clean this up.
You don't have to clean it up.
If it's got tits, tracks, or tires, it's going to need maintenance.
Exactly.
You know who says that?
I know exactly what you were going to say. That's why I told you, let her fly. I don't care.
That's Chad's dad's line.
No shit.
Mm-hmm. Huh. So my dad and Chad's dad are like trucker Harley buddies from way back in the day.
No
so I've
kidding.
known Chad like for a long time, and Chad's older brother and my brother were in high school together. So
that's funny. It's a small world.
Yeah. So Jim and my dad were always pretty tight. So, and then I remember my dad always used to say that, like, especially when I was like, we'd have like a hydraulic hose, and then that was like my dad's like, it'll be all right. Like, well, tits are tired, and don't need maintenance, right? Like, I like see homos naked. That don't help me none,
Holy shit, we have been talking for quite a while.
That's never happened to me before.
Nah, I wasn't even paying attention to the time, and I looked down. I'm like, oh shit. Adam, thank you.
Mm-hmm. No, it was fun.
This has been a blast.
Yeah.
You have to come out again.
You know?
We'll talk about something else next time around.
We'll get something else. Maybe we'll get clearance from the tower for the top secret mission.
Hey.
Because I really want to dump the beans.
I think
we'll leave him guessing.
Yeah, because I think I can relate to some of that.
I think you and I could really have a good powwow session on that.
Yeah, I think we can inform a lot of people
from our time in the Boy Scouts.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was never an Eagle Scout. Didn't make it that far.
I was not in any of them.
Me neither. But
I was president of the FFA.
Had a boy.
I'm the president of the FFA alumni now.
Are you really?
Yeah, they just wouldn't let me leave.
They must like you.
Yeah, nobody else wanted the job. True story. We just had elections. They're like, we're going to have time for elections. And then like Gary Harp's like, oh, I just moved that we all retain the same positions as before. I'm like, you don't even have anything. He's like, I know, I'd like it to stay that way.
Sounds like Gary. He's a good egg.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, Adam.
Let's shut her down.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
It's been a pleasure.
Good. Best podcast I've done all day.
1 in a row. I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
It's 1 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.